Hello, welcome to Book and Hearth. I'm Anna Yudin. I'm a doctor of clinical psychology and an author, and today I want to talk about Marcus Aurelius' Meditations book. I will be pronouncing his name Marcus Aurelius, because that's how a Romanian would pronounce it, and I don't know, I feel like everybody pronounces it in a very Anglo way, Marcus Aurelius, and obviously Romanians are partly descended from the Roman Empire, so I just feel like probably the Romanian and Italian way of saying it would probably be closer to the way Latin actually pronounced it. So I'm going to be pronouncing it in a very foreign way. I hope that's okay. If you're not familiar with what exactly I'm talking about, Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic emperor. Stoicism is a type of philosophy that originated in the ancient Greece area. I think different people would define it in different ways. The way that I personally would define it includes resilience, practicing acceptance and non-resistant of every moment, practicing just loving whatever happens to you, just wholeheartedly leaning into it rather than resisting what's happening to you, even if it's not in accordance with your preferences for what you hope would happen. I think acting with integrity, being honest, being just, being fair, being humble, giving to others. Also, self-control and discipline is really big in Stoicism. That's kind of the brief overview that I would give of Stoicism. Let me know what you would define it as in the comments. Today, I'd like to run through my notes of meditations, just what my particular takeaways of this book were. I don't have it on me. I've already sent it to where my new home will be, so I can't hold it up for you, but I will put a link to it from my Amazon storefront in the pinned comment. So the first thing I'd like to start off with is more broadly about the book Meditations and some realizations that I had, not because of its contents necessarily, but because of its structure. So Meditations is kind of like a journal or a diary. Marcus Aurelius was talking to himself about how to be more stoic in his behavior and in his thoughts. It's believed that he never expected the book to actually be published and publicized to the people, so he was just kind of giving himself a pep talk. And that I thought was really valuable to recognize in and of itself, because I think sometimes when we speak to ourselves or when we journal to ourselves saying this is the right way to behave, this is the right way to think, this is the right way to address your feelings, to the person hearing that or reading that, it might sound like, oh wow, this person has mastered this particular behavior or this particular value, when in reality it might be something that person is struggling with, that they're trying to behave more in alignment with. For example, a huge component of Meditations is Marcus's reminders of his own mortality and how death shouldn't be something to fear. And the book was written in the last 10 years of his life, and so presumably he was getting more elderly and more sick as those years progressed. To me, when I was reading the book, it honestly seemed to me like somebody trying to convince himself that, it's okay to die, there's nothing to fear, rather than somebody who truly wholeheartedly believed it, right? Mortality is such a huge fear for arguably every person on this earth. I'm sure there was a tiny part of him that was still afraid of mortality, that was just trying to remind himself that there's nothing you can do about it and, take it with honor and soon you'll be forgotten and that's just that. But for us from the outside looking in, it can feel like, oh wow, he seems so accepting of his own mortality and it seems like it's such a healthy attitude. Why can't I be more like that? I don't believe that he 100% believed these things. I think that he wrote them down probably to remind himself, to try to ingrain that belief deeper in him. I think that's something I've struggled with regards to Stoicism specifically, is sometimes I feel like I'm not stoic enough. I look at some of my role models, some of them family members, some of them celebrities, some of them historical figures, and I think, wow, this person is so resilient, so stoic, they so effortlessly seem to embody the Stoic principles. And to me, it just doesn't come as naturally. It's more of an effort. So every time I complain, for instance, or every time I freak out about some sort of trigger for my anxiety, I feel like I'm not being stoic. I'm not stoic enough. I don't have the right to call myself an aspiring stoic. Especially as a woman, because stoicism is something that is particularly popular among men. There's not a whole lot of female discussion around Stoicism, and Stoicism is just something associated more with men because there's the stereotype of women as like emotional shrews that, just cannot be resilient or whatever, which is not at all the case. I think sometimes you can get a little bit of imposter syndrome as a woman who identifies with Stoicism because it can feel like, well, all these men seem to have mastered it perfectly, and here I am being so imperfect at it. Reading this book really made me realize, well, even the Stoics themselves, the ones that founded this philosophy, were not perfect, and it seemed to be trying to convince themselves of these values. Nobody is perfect. Everybody is an aspiring Stoic. No one is 100% Stoic. It always is going to be a process and trying to practice and implement these different values. Just be gentle with yourself. Be compassionate with yourself. And when you notice yourself slipping from the Stoic values that you hope to embody, just gently redirect yourself back to them. So that was my first takeaway from meditations. Now, let me just run through some of the things I wrote down in my mental health journal about the broader takeaways. Like I said, I do think a huge component of this book was Marcus Aurelius trying to grasp his own mortality and trying to cope with it preemptively. So I wrote down, death is natural. It makes no difference how long you live. Exit life with grace. And I struggle with this because I love life so much. It hasn't always been that way. There were times when I honestly didn't want to be here. I didn't care if I died young. But for my adult life, the majority of my adult life, I have absolutely been in love with life. I have so much that I want to accomplish. I have so many things that I want to do, so much joy and happiness that I hope to experience in the future, that when I think about the potential of dying, it scares me, not because I'm scared of death itself, but rather because I don't want to lose out on these experiences that I crave. But this book helped me grasp that it really makes no difference when you pass away. So, whenever it happens, especially because there's nothing you can do about it to prevent it, just accept that that's your fate and try to not resist it so much. And along the same lines, another really big takeaway of this book was the idea of loving fate, accepting your fate for whatever it is. I've heard people say that when you resist what's happening to you, you're resisting the entire universe because everything is interconnected in the universe. Everything is somehow causally interdependent. The way that he puts it that I also related to was when you resist what's happening, you're resisting what's natural. Because whatever is happening in the world, that is what's considered natural at that moment in time. That is what nature or the universe or whatever you want to call it has deemed is going to happen. So when you resist everything that's happening on a moment-by-moment basis, you're resisting not only the entire universe, but nature itself. You're resisting what is naturally supposed to happen. Some of the parts of the book that I loved the most was when he talks about dealing with what others think of you. Particularly, there were a lot of parts where he said you shouldn't preoccupy yourselves with what other people think, only with your own character. People cannot injure you. No one can disturb you from your mental peace. They only injure themselves. And the opposite is also true. If you are hurting other people, you might think you're hurting other people, but really you're injuring yourself. It's your own inner peace that you're hurting because ultimately you can't impact that person. If they practice acceptance of every moment, if they practice living in accordance to their values, you can't hurt that person. You're only hurting yourself. There was a lot of talk of character and showing your character through actions, through things like honesty, justice, discipline, courage, kindness, patience, charity, self-control, humility. And I love this. I think it's a very noble way of living life. And I think it's honestly missing in a lot of people these days. Not to sound like a boomer, but it's true that a lot of people in this day and age are not very humble, are not very disciplined, are not very kind. And so you need to, as the person who's an aspiring Stoic, make the effort to embody those values instead. Lead the way, show by example. And this ties in with his approach on how to show people that they're erring, that they're going down the wrong path. He's very much against shaming people or making them feel bad, and instead just advocates for gently showing them the right way to do things. Trying to show them their mistake without anger, without moral superiority or self-righteousness. He recommends recalling a time when you have made the same mistake as them. That's a really great exercise to just immediately snap yourself into empathy. I remember back in college, I was talking to a friend of mine about a person that I was angry with. And she said to me, like, don't you think that you've done the same thing as this person that you're mad at? Like, can you think about maybe how it is affecting him? Because you've been in this position too, and he seems to be really hurting right now. Obviously, that was a very shameful moment, but in that moment, I realized, like, yeah, I'm being a hypocrite. I have done the same thing that I'm now angry at this person for doing. Remembering that is a really simple way to just get yourself to be a little bit more gentle with people, a little softer, a little bit more conciliatory rather than shaming. Maybe you could make the case that this is a little bit shamey, but he says, remember that there could be no world without shameless people. So when you come across a shameless person, just remember, this is one of those people that just happen to exist in the world, that I can't do anything about that. It's just, I've come across one of these people. When you come across a person that is doing this thing, hurting you in whatever way, remember that. This is just coming into contact with one of those people that are going to do this no matter what. Stop trying to control it. Stop trying to prevent it. It's gonna happen. Marcus Aurelius also talks about not complaining. I think that is something that I've been trying to do more of recently. Sometimes in a season of life, my daily journaling practice, I will put no complaining as one of my goals, or other times I'll put like acceptance or say yes to the universe as one of the values for the day. And that usually helps. And look, I'm not always perfect at it, but I think it's actually made me realize I'm a little bit better at it than I think. I was raised in a family of a lot of complaining, a lot of negativity. And when I think about, honestly, how little of that I do on a day-to-day basis, I kind of feel proud of myself because I was able to overcome those tendencies. Focus on what you have in the present, never in the past or the future. Nothing lasts forever, neither the good nor the bad. Nature's ever-changing. Stay in emotional control of yourself. Live each day like it's your last. Those were the main lessons, takeaways that I took, but let me also touch on some of the quotes that I jotted down that I thought were really powerful. The value of attentiveness varies in proportion to its object. You're better off not giving the small things more time than they deserve. This is interesting because I always say where attention goes, energy flows. Attention can be sometimes idealized, like, oh, we want to have as much attention as possible, but it can definitely be misplaced. You know, you can put your attention towards something that hurts you in the long run, or something that's negative, or something that is so unimportant that it kind of takes away from your ability to focus on other things. And so that was a really good reminder that attention is good when it's directed towards something important and good. Attention can be a bad thing when it's directed towards something unimportant or bad. Pass through this brief life as nature demands. Give it up without complaint. Like an olive that ripens and falls, praising its mother, thanking the tree it grew on. What a beautiful way of looking at mortality, you know, just thank you for the time that I had on this earth. Now it is as natural for me to fall as an olive falling from an olive tree. I think so many of our mortal concerns can be reframed if we think about it from the lens of how would nature react to this? How would a grape react to falling from a vine? Would it cry? Would it pout? No, it would say, I understand that my time has come and now I'm contributing to the collective, to the one unified consciousness in a different way by having my pit be buried somewhere else so that a grapevine can grow there instead. So remember this principle when something threatens to cause you pain. The thing itself was no misfortune at all. To endure it and prevail is great good fortune. What he was talking about here is the idea of acceptance. Again, that when something bad happens to you, if you're able to think of it as a good thing, you will be so much better in the long run. He talks about reframing it as, oh, thank goodness that this bad thing happened to you. You as a Stoic understand that just is what it is. Thank goodness this didn't happen to somebody else who doesn't understand that. So in a sense, the fact that it happened to you is a good thing. Don't be put off by other people's comments and criticism. The others obey their own head, follow their own impulses. Don't be distracted. Keep walking. Follow your own nature. The best revenge is not to be like that. Forget the future. When and if it comes, you'll have the same resources to draw on. This is such a good way to think about anxiety and worries for the future. He basically says, don't worry about it now. You know, if it does come up in the future, then you'll have the resources to cope with it, but there's no reason to live in the future now when you're in the present. Enjoy the present. Live today like it's your last. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. This might sound macabre, but really it's just saying, imagine that yesterday was your last day and today you happened to get a second chance. Wouldn't you be so grateful and make the most of it in every possible way? Give yourself a gift, the present moment. Today I escaped from anxiety. Or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. So here you see, even Marcus Aurelius struggled with anxiety from time to time. It wasn't that he never felt it, it was that he regulated it. Just the other day, I experienced a situation that in the past would have made me freak out, would have given me an anxiety attack, and this time I was able to regulate it, and I was able to not freak out and just enjoy my day. And at the end of the day, before even 24 hours had passed, the thing I was so worried about was discarded. It fell away. It wasn't something I needed to worry about anymore. You have the choice. I know sometimes it can feel like, oh, well, all these things are happening to me, all these stressors, all these triggers. You have the choice how you want to deal with it. What people say or think about him or how they treat him isn't something he worries about. Only these two questions. Is what he's doing now the right thing to be doing? Does he accept and welcome what he's been assigned? This is, again, really important for me to remember as a YouTuber, because I think sometimes when people get offended, I get in my own head like, oh, maybe they have a point. Maybe I need to take responsibility or self-reflect for something I've said or done that's wrong. But I need to remember that I went into whatever I said having thought about it deeply, having written about it, having researched about it, having considered it while I was recording, while I was editing, while I was uploading and rechecking it. This isn't just something that popped out of my head and I said, oh my God, let me just say this impulsive thing. Trust in your own ability to judge for yourself. Trust in your ability to stand by what you said. If you really mean it and you really believe in it and there isn't missing information that you haven't considered, don't worry about other people giving you such a hard time. Stick to your guns when it comes to things that you believe in and things that you value. Because like I said, people are going to get offended no matter what. They're going to disagree with you. They might even get rude about it. Take the information openly, take feedback, and also stand by what you said if you mean it. Because otherwise you're always going to be blowing in the wind. One person says this, the other person says this, you're being pulled in two different directions. But what is it that you believe? What is it that you truly think is right? Stop talking about what the good man is like and just be one. Okay, this is hard. I'm all for, don't just talk, show through your actions what your values are. I think it's hard, particularly in the context of education, because like I'm doing right now, I'm basically saying here's the correct way to do things, right? I'm telling you guys when really I should be showing you ultimately that there's something wrong there. I'm telling you here, be like this if you want to be stoic, when really I should be showing you here's how I'm an aspiring stoic. But it's hard because it's the information has to be disseminated somehow. The way I think about advice, particularly on the internet, is you put out an idea, and if it resonates with people, then maybe they make the choice to embody that value. And if it doesn't resonate with them, if it offends them in some way, then they have the choice to not absorb that, and many do. So I almost kind of feel like you should show your values through your actions, but you can also talk about your values to other people, and it's up to them to make the decision. Is this something I want to integrate into who I am, or is it something that I reject? It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. So I'll just leave you with that quote, okay? Think about how it's a little bit lopsided, that you love yourself more than you love other people, but you care so much what other people think about your choices in your life. He put it really simply. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. If you've read the book, what did you think about it? What do you think about Stoicism more broadly? Like I said, I consider myself an aspiring Stoic. I don't 100% agree with everything. I'm not as much into asceticism. Is that how you say it?
Wrong.
I've never taken a philosophy class, so I don't know some of these very core words, how to say them. I am a little bit of a hedonist. I love beauty. I love living life. I love experiencing joy. A Stoic would probably say you need to temper that down. You can't feel the joy, just like you shouldn't feel the pain. So I don't 100% agree with Stoicism either, but I find a lot of value in a lot of it. So like I said, let me know what your thoughts are. I'll see you soon.